Let's get started making these hanging letter organizers right now. The dividers are too short to get a nice clean cut here. So what I'm going to do is I've got them clamped up. But right now this is really dangerous to try to cut right along this 60-degree angle right here. And it's too dangerous to hold each one because your hands are too close to the saw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this all up in painter's tape so it's nice and flat and flush. With these clamps temporarily holding it together, and then as this becomes one block, I can essentially chop this right down through here the way I want it. And once I get this angle cut, then I'm going to take this side and I'm going to just run a round over on each side once I cut them to the right side. I'm going to take the painter's tape because that's the angle in which my saw is facing. And this over here on the back side will be the back side riding up against the fence. So I want to put the edge over here on this side. That way it doesn't act interfering with the saw's fence. Now let's wrap this around carefully so that it maintains a good grip on the material. So now I got all these banded together. It's flat on this bottom side here so I can hold her up against the fence and cut it. Question of the day, how would you cut this angle on a miter saw that's capable of doing 60-degree angle and hold all these together so it's safe? Leave your comments below. Rather long Bessie clamp here. I'm going to try to keep it so it's out of the blade path. This is kind of a dangerous cut, and if anyone has any suggestions on how to do a better cut like this in the future, let me know so I can improve this. We've got our sides and this all done, and we've got this all cut and sanded. So now my angles here are cut so that they will essentially slip in here at a 60-degree angle in here. Because I need to take this and cut a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch into here, and then the same with this, 1/4 inch into 1/4 inch into there. So it receives a 1/4 inch backing piece of plywood. Now I'll run it back through and take this other little piece off right here. Now what that's done is that's given me a place in my back to cut off. So now what I need to do is cut the corresponding rabbet into here, which will allow me to slip this piece into there. Now we've got the gap pretty much closed off when it's squared across, and it's tight on this side. So that is essentially what it looks like after it's fitted together. Rabbets will marry up, and then the slanted pieces here will get a dado in each side so that they're at a 60-degree angle also. So they just slide right down in there. Okay, so I went ahead and set them on the table like you would see with the tops and bottoms assembled. That way I can get a gauge of how much I need to take off for the back on the tops and bottoms. I want to put a rabbet in the back side of here. So this back, as you see, like a backboard would also rabbet into the back of these as well for stability. So I'm going to basically cut down and cut off this section right here, like that, and cut off that, and then we'll bring it back to about, that far there. That way it'll allow me to put back onto here. And then because the way these are set up, it'll allow me to put the back on to the back of these. They fit pretty good. I mean, there's a little bit of a gap, but what we'll do is we'll just trim that up a little bit. Go pretty nice. So that's what it'll look like when it's from the back side. Again, like I said, with that 1/4 inch piece of plywood sitting in here to make the divider, and I don't want the top to go all the way up, but we need it to go with the right angle. It gives us the angle we need. From that, we should be able to set our angle gauge to know how to line these up, and then all we have to do is figure out where they are so that they're aesthetically pleasing and positioned good, with this last one butting up against this piece right here. Now, all I'm going to do is run it up against this edge here. We'll just start closing this in until it's the right angle, like that, and then we'll tighten it down. This here is 2.5 inches, so when it fits in here, this bottom one should be right at 2.5 inches up. As we'll measure 2.5 inches up to there, we can take our angle gauge at this point and basically draw a line just like this. And that will provide us with our bottom edge of cutting. So line this guy up like that. Just like that. And we'll trace that line just like that. And that is where I will basically take a router and cut down to this lip also, and cut it out to about up to here. We're not going to go all the way through, and then we'll kind of make it a blind dado cut. Trim all that out right here, and do just like that. So there's my depths for those. What we'll do is I'll probably leave half, 3/4 inch, probably a 1/2 inch back set from this. And that's where I need to strap the router. So on our drill press, we took a Forstner bit and cleaned out a lot of the extra waste material. Now we'll go back through with our router and do a nice cleanup along the edges to take around those little marks that the Forstner bit left and get it nice and tight for our dividers. So we're just going to take one piece first, and to get this a nice clean edge, I'm just going to clamp down a nice good straight edge like this. So to cup this backside here, even though it's on the pull side, so it's going to want to pull, I adjusted my straight edge a little bit in so I can cut this. It's going to be easier than doing a plunge cut in such a narrow path, I decided. We're going to cut it like that. I just need to maintain good control over my router so it doesn't just take off and rip through stuff. Should still allow that to slide in there, and it's still pretty tight. Now we've routed out all these. And if you notice, this does not go all the way in. We're going to notch this out a little bit so you won't see it. And simply to do that, what we'll do is we'll just measure the depth of this, which is 1/4 inch. And then we'll take this over to the bandsaw and we'll notch out a 1/4 inch notch, and it'll fit right in there. Because I make everything crazy difficult, I didn't route these all up to the same level, so I'm going to have to individually do that. If I'd have done that, it would have made things much easier, but I didn't. What I need to do is I need to stick like this in here so it's just flush like that. And if I cut extra out of this, it doesn't really matter. It just won't be in the dado, so it won't matter too much. But worse off is what I did here is originally this is supposed to be 2.5 inches high, which it is, and when it slips in here like so, it's supposed to go in here. It only goes to there, and then this is supposed to butt up to that. But because my original lines are off, if I shove this all the way down, as you can see, if I make this flush at the bottom like that, and I slide this piece all the way down, it actually does not line up and does exactly what I wanted it not to do. What I'm going to have to do, because it's only supposed to go to this right there, and then it's supposed to butt up like that. So, which when it butts up like that, you can see how come in here like that and be all flush and everything. And keep in mind I've got to cox it because this isn't all the way in there. But I now have this little extra 1/2 inch piece. So my measurements are wrong, resulting in that being wrong, because these should have actually been down further. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take this 1/2 inch off and then make it a little bit narrower. It'll hide it. It won't be that too bad of a deal. Oh well, no harm, no foul. We'll just clean it up by cutting this off here. It'll be a little bit shorter, but so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of these dividers, and because they don't, like I said, they don't have to be, I'm just going to take a mark like to there and notch that for that slot. And that's basically how they go together. Now we'll trim these off so that there's a little bit of a, not obviously sticking over the edge like this. As you can see, these are still rough. I'll cut these back a little bit. Assembling these are going to be a little bit tricky because they have a slight little crown. So there we go right there. These are too long. I'll trim them off, round them over. The one piece goes in the backside here, and there's a piece that's going to go in the backside here, which actually will have an arc to it. So it's starting to come together slowly, but we're getting them all put together and assembled, roughed up, so that we can do a good glue up. I want to curve this around at 1 inch. 1 inch mark here. Right here. I'm going to use a French curve. It creates a pleasing, really smooth arch that you can do different ways. Now I'm going to show here, and I'm just going to use the same reference points. I'm going to go off this, push it to the top and to there. And I create this nice curve on that. Now what I'll do is I'll go over to my bandsaw and we'll just trim these sections off. Again, this is just using a simple French curve. I'll link that down below in the description. We're going to take off this little corner here, and I want it to hang above the other piece. Just like that. Now, a rough back for this, basically going to be an inlay like this. I want the grain to go up and down so it matches the sides. I think that will look better. So it's going to look like that, except we'll have the dividers in there where the dados are. So here is the pre-assembled dry fit unit. I think I'm going to make a little bit of a change up here. I think I'm going to cut this off here and round this completely over so it becomes a nice rounded edge. In addition, I need to take and cut these off just a little bit and do some round overs on them, and then we're going to be ready to glue it all up. So I want to make sure these notches are down below that surface line there. Other than that, I think this is a nice curve here. A little bit of a flat edge here. So looking at this from the front, what we have here is this overhang. Now I don't want it to go back a little bit, but I'm going to cut it off, and then I'm going to use a round over, so I'm rounding it over both sides, so it creates a nice little kind of a 1/4 inch round over on both of them. So it's not sharp, not rigid. That's one side. Now we'll take and round these over. So we have a pretty nice round over, which is what I want. There's a little lip right there where the router jumped on me a little bit. Little lip right there where the bit isn't fully touching. But again, a good sand job will get rid of that. So now the next thing we're going to round over is this piece right here. We're going to round from line to line. But because this is a small piece, I'm actually going to clamp this guy down because I don't want my hand near it. What do you think I should do? What are your opinions? I'm almost thinking I should go ahead and round these over, but part of me is hesitant about it, but I think I will. Now what we have to do is do some sanding on everything. I'll cut the back after I put the unit together. That way the back will just pop right in. The next step here will be sand all the edges down nicely, sand the sharp edges, any other places that might not feel good, and maybe put some clear finish on it, because where it's going inside the cabinet for our message center, it's just got clear finish on it also, so there's no stain. So I'll probably do that with these. So one of the things we're going to work on when we sand this down is making sure there's no sharp edges, no pencil marks, and we'll get it all nice and smooth. Again, we'll probably take it down to 220, and then all along these edges here, we want to get all these burn marks and stuff like that off, because those will show up through the clear poly, and we don't want any of that showing up. Now what I'll do is, since I did get some water on this, it raised the grain on several of these, like right here, the grain is raised here. This one I used a lot less glue, so it didn't have as much squeeze out, so it won't be too big of a deal. But I'm going to just hand sand this down a little bit. Knock them all sand down pretty much the way I want them. So I'm going to blow out any of the particles, and then I'm going to run over it with a tack cloth as best as possible, and then we'll begin putting finish on it. Alright, so those are now ready for finish. So we've got our two letter organizers made. They're all glued, they're all put together, wiped them all down, removed any raised grain, removed any dust particles with blowing them out first with compressed air and then with a tack cloth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to put on some clear finish, and that'll allow it to keep its natural maple look. Overall, this was an interesting project. The hardest was doing these blind dados. It's also a challenge getting these angles cut for these right here so that they line up with the back here. It was a fun project. Definitely not an easy one to say the least. Overall, I think it turned out really good. I've decided not to fill in these cracks that you see right here and here, just because I didn't feel like trying to mash anything in there and then sand down any. It's just too tight of a crack to try to get in there for me for what it's going to be used for. So I think this will be a good project to wrap up, and I'll show some pictures of after finishing these up with these. All I'm going to do is spray some finish on them. So we finished putting the finish on our hanging letter organizers. It's got about 4 light coats with a sanding in between first and second, and then the third and fourth there was no sanding. Now we're going to put some key hooks on here so we can hang keys off of them. So I got some of these 7/8 inch cup hooks. They're antique brass, kind of match our pools in our upstairs. Kind of want them, spaced like that. I think 3 will still look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure these out so I have 3 equal sections. So I'm simply just going to make a little light pencil mark here. And this would have probably been easier had I done this before I actually put this in, but sometimes you don't always think about those things. I can go up about the center of this, and I know that this is 2.5, so the center of it will be 1.25 inches. And all I'm going to do is transfer those lines up. Then I'm just going to pilot hole these out. So there we are.